Hi guys, welcome back to The Baseline. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you guys are having a great day, a great night, and of course, a great life. So imagine this with me. The cameras, they flash, and the flags, they wave. Trump and Xi Jinping, they shake hands beneath the fluorescent calm of a Korean summit room. But behind the polite applause, something historic had just shifted. The world's balance of power quietly tipped. And I imagine you can feel it, right? That uneasy hum beneath the headlines, that sense that America's not the one dictating the terms anymore. Because while the headlines said peace in our time, the markets cheered. But what really happened in Korea was something bigger, something perhaps irreversible. Because for the first time, the United States looked across the table and saw China as its equal. Trump declared victory, boasting that China would buy soybeans again, lift a few trade barriers, and bring peace. But scratch the surface, and the truth looks really different. The United States didn't win this trade war. It circled back to where it started in the very first place. The so-called deal simply erased Trump's own mess. He was the arsonist, congratulating himself for putting out the fire he lit. And the price? 6 months of global uncertainty, billions lost in trade, and a signal heard loud and clear from Seoul to Shanghai. America blinked. The nation that once set the rules of global commerce just accepted a new reality. It no longer calls a shot alone. Now, think of it like a poker game where the loudest player just realized the quiet one across the table actually owns the casino. Because when you unpack this truce, the numbers tell a brutal story. Washington agreed to lower tariffs on key Chinese goods, suspend new sanctions, and scale back its blacklist from tech firms. Beijing, in return, agreed to resume what it had already been doing, buying American soybeans and promising to discuss TikTok. In other words, the United States handed China concessions for the privilege of pretending it didn't lose. It's like your landlord charging you extra rent for 6 months, then saying, "Good news, I'll stop overcharging you now." And you're supposed to thank them. Or imagine it like a boxer bragging about surviving the 10th round and not realizing the referees already raised the other guy's hand. Because when Bloomberg's economist graded this trade truce, the scorecard was pretty clear. China gave up less, gained more, and walked away as a peer, not as a subordinate. And if the 20th century was a one-man show, like the American century, this summit was a curtain call. The world just met the co-star. But here's a part few noticed. This wasn't just about tariffs or soybeans. It was about identity. For 75 years, America defined itself as the superpower, the only superpower. The idea that it must lead, must win, must dictate. And that story just cracked. And the sound of that crack will echo through decades. Because this meeting in Korea wasn't a handshake. It was a mirror. And in it, the United States saw its own reflection. A rival just as wealthy, just as strategic, if not more, and far more patient. Now, Trump even called it the G2, declaring, "My meeting with Xi Jinping will lead to everlasting peace and success. God bless both China and the United States." Now, that might sound diplomatic, but beneath it is the quiet admission every empire eventually makes. We're not the only ones anymore. Now, Rome had to say it when it met Persia. Britain had to say it when it met America. And now America has to say it now that it has China. What's happening isn't the end of the world order. It's the end of our illusion about it. For decades, Washington treated China like a factory with a flag. a place to outsource, not compete. But Beijing turned those contracts into leverage, turned dependence into dominance. While the United States politicians sold fear on cable news, China built infrastructure, bought influence, and quietly mastered the global supply chain. It's like America built the world's biggest chessboard, and China learned every move by making the pieces. And now, when the United States threatens, we'll cut you off, Beijing just kind of chuckles and smiles because half the world's tech, medicine, and metals run through Chinese ports. The power shift is no longer theoretical, it's logistical. And the irony? Trump's celebrating a deal that basically says we'll go back to 10% tariffs. That's like yelling, I'm back on track, after running in circles for 6 months. Imagine a magician setting his own hat on fire, pulling out of the ashes and calling it a dove. That's modern trade politics. But here's the deeper twist. This isn't just an American misstep. It's a global reckoning. Because the Western press, CNN, BBC, Financial Times, quietly shifted tone overnight. They're no longer calling China a threat. They're calling them a peer. The South China Morning Post even found that Western coverage of China's economy flipped from 70% negative to 40%. That's a massive narrative shift in just 6 years. That's not journalism evolving, that's psychology breaking. It's like the bully realizing the kid he mocked for years just grew taller and owns the cafeteria. And when that happens, the stories change because media doesn't just report power, it reflects it. Even Washington hawks, the Rubios, Cottons, and Scotts, now they whisper about peaceful coexistence. The phrase itself feels foreign. For years, they told voters that China was an existential threat. But now, the new talking point is strategic partnership. The empire that once swore it would never share the stage is rehearsing its first duet. History rhymes like a soloist pretending to sing harmony because the audience started clapping for somebody else. And that's the real story of this Korean handshake. It's not just to end tariffs, but an end to the illusion that we're the only superpower. The world just became multipolar, and the U.S. can either panic or adapt. All right, guys, do I have this all right? Do I have it all wrong? Let me know in the comment section below. I look forward to reading your opinions and replying to them as well. And thank you guys again so much for watching me here on The Baseline. Okay, cheers, everybody.